especially in the age right now where there is just so much noise. Like the last thing I want in my inbox is another thing to do. So if it doesn't have a good subject line that's going to get me to open it, and then B, even if it doesn't have something in there of value to me, eventually it just gets numb, or I get numb to it. This may sound crazy, but I'm way more likely as a consumer to do business with somebody with a 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9 star rating that has lots of reviews that answers the negative ones, because it tells me that they're real.
We're in the day and age now where people naturally share things that impact them.
And I answer the phone, he's like, "Is this Dustin?" I'm like, "It is." He's like, "You mother."
What's up, everybody? I am super excited to be hosting Life by the Horns today. As usual, this is a no-nonsense podcast that definitely lives up to its tagline, all bull and no bullshit. So here, you can always expect one of three shows. Number one, we'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with leaders who are crushing it in life and business. Number two, we might be tackling your burning questions in our Q&A sessions, because obviously sometimes you just need straight up answers to real problems. Number three, we're going to pull back the curtain on Best Life Group, giving you inside looks at how we think and operate. No sugarcoating, just real talk about business, fitness, health, family, personal growth, and obviously grabbing life by the horns. My name is Jarvis Gatlin. I am the digital marketing manager here at Best Life Group. And today we're going to be looking to pull some of that wisdom out of your actual host, Dustin Lunde. If you didn't know, he's the co-founder of Best Life Group. So I have the pleasure of working with him every day. And he's all about scaling businesses and helping business owners to grow their companies. And when he's not doing that, he's eating something good, cooking something good, or he's at the gym. And I bet you're feeling it this morning because you probably just got back from the gym. So what's up, Dustin? How you doing, man?
What is up, man? Yeah, feeling it indeed. I'm wiped out. But anyway, like you, happy to be here, and glad you do a way better intro. So thank you for that.
Oh man, no problem, man. So man, I'm really excited about our topic today, because we've been talking a lot about this in particular in the office. You know, many businesses come to us and they want to spend money and they want to advertise, but we've been noticing that there's some serious untapped opportunities that they have to grow without spending that extra money and even more time. So I'd love for you to share with the audience, what are some of those opportunities that they're missing?
Yeah, great question. So, and to be fair, I would say we even struggle with this from time to time, but I think one of the biggest ones that I see over and over again is this hyper focus on all things new traffic or new visibility versus trying to leverage the fan base of the customers that people already have. And I think something that's been very telling. And to your point, we specifically focus on all things, paid advertising, SEO, web design, and those kinds of things. But as we've talked with more and more customers over the years, there's just been a consistent lack of having a CRM where they're A, managing the customers they already have, but B, using it to follow up with them as well. And B, I think with the lack of that CRM and paying attention to that existing customer base, it leaves just a massive opportunity to lose a lot of those customers, because right now with inflation being so high, the economy being where it is, a lot of us are more so a commodity, than we are, a business that people consistently come back to.
Yeah. Why do you think businesses are missing those opportunities though?
Because it's not something people talk about enough. Sure. Most businesses are familiar with what a CRM is, or a customer relationship management tool, but it's not sexy. Like no one sits here and talks about, oh man, like the latest and greatest, way to nurture your existing customer base. Like that's not what we talk about. We talk about, SaaS tools that help with reputation management. We talk with, the latest and greatest tool that, we just looked at one last week that is basically a video platform that, increases opt-in conversion rates for webinars and those kinds of things. Like we don't, like the days of MailChimp and Constant Contact and talking about how great a tool like that is, that's a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think we're constantly looking for this instant gratification, which is paid ads, on a longer runway, it's SEO, but I think there's just such a big opportunity in working and nurturing longer term relationships.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We talk about too. You even see this on the advertising side, where everyone's advertising to get that new click, but we know the first click, the first visitor is the most expensive, right? And so, talk about that. How does this directly affect the overall business? Like really focusing in on the customer engagement on the back end, the not sexy thing. How does that actually affect the business?
Yeah, it is a longer term investment. I mean, let's just be clear. So I think for most, at least when they come to an agency of any type, or when they're looking to scale, they're looking for how can I get instant gratification or ROI on my investment. So in ads and SEO are one of those things. But when you're looking at growing a business, most of us, I would say, have a long-term plan or idea that we want to do this 5, 10, 20, 30 years, or, till when we sell it or hand it off to somebody else in some sort of legacy format or fashion. But long-term it's just not sexy. It really isn't. I mean, when you look at, the Apples and the Nikes of the world and all these brands that have done it really, really well, it wasn't that they just had one ad or something that was hugely effective. It was a continuum of a strategy that probably changed over time, but it's something that most businesses, I mean, they're having a hard enough time thinking a couple of weeks down the road, let alone a couple of years. And so, when we start talking long-term strategy with people, it's like, well, shit, yeah, that all sounds great, but, I need something now. And that's where I think a holistic approach makes the most sense. But I think a lot of people leave so much on the table by not focusing on the long-term, because to your point, that first click is the most expensive. And it's often where the most agencies and business are targeting. It's that bottom of the funnel, the people who are the most excited and ready to buy now, but it is super, super expensive. And there's got to be a follow through to get them to even turn into a customer, if you're lucky. And then if you get them to turn into a customer, what does that nurturing relationship look like after the fact? And if it's just sending coupons their way, and then once a year reminding them how great they were and they should come back, like, that's a fail. That stuff doesn't work.
Yeah. Why do you think that's such a fail? Just the basic coupon sending, or just like going through the motions.
You train your customers that they don't matter. I mean, I'm not going to say the brand, but the shirt that I'm wearing today, I'm a huge advocate of the brand. I actually like who they are, but they've definitely trained me. They've trained me to pay attention to the app notifications that I get and the emails that I get when stuff goes on sale. If it's not on sale, I don't buy it.
Right.
Period. And it's good quality stuff, but what they have done is train me that hey, if I wait to about every third email, I'm going to get a 30% off, and that's when it makes the most sense for me to double down and get the stuff. Versus when it's brand new or just dropped, I don't care. I can wait 2 months. It's not that important to me. It's not a status thing. It just feels good when I wear it. But again, that's what they've trained me to do, and so many others have as well, because the only time they reach out to their customers is say, hey, I've got a shiny new thing, or B, we've done a really terrible job in connecting with you for a period of time, but we're still here. Like, none of that matters, especially in the age right now where there is just so much noise. Like, the last thing I want in my inbox is another thing to do.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't have a good subject line that's going to get me to open it, and then B, even if it doesn't have something in there of value to me, eventually it just gets numb, or I get numb to it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a really great segue into something that we've been talking about here. Just customer service, and just the state of customer service. It's like, again, just to your point, going through the motions. And, I because I'm weird, I guess, because I'm a nerd about it, I always look at the marketing channel, like the buyer's journey. So I'm looking at pre-purchase, the purchase, and then post-purchase, right? And what we're talking about here is most people after the first purchase, after the purchase, they're not really focusing on how to they'll try to make the marketing great, but they don't want to make the back end process great, because it's not sexy, like you said. But I just feel like there's so much opportunity there to just win. But you also mentioned big brands like Nike and these big guys versus the real issue that small business owners are having. Like, they're wearing all these hats. So just explain to our audience, in your opinion, Like, what's going on? And just from a customer service perspective, like, do you think the bar is being raised now? Do you think it's being lowered? From a customer satisfaction perspective, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely low,
Yeah.
and we see it everywhere. But I think, much like I mentioned at the very beginning of this, I mean, we're even a product of some of this stuff too. And not service being low, but not paying enough attention on customers on the back end. But I think we consistently, as companies, are so absorbed in our competition and everything that's going on around us. And that's what we continue to compare ourselves to. And the downside to doing that is when everybody is shifting in a direction of poor service, just focusing on the front end, that's generally what you pay attention to, which means that you lose sight of what really matters, which is the customer at the end of the day. I mean, we watched this 2 weeks ago. It was a Simon Sinek YouTube video from, 10, 15 years ago. And he talked about, two speaking engagements that he had, one at Apple and one at Microsoft. And the one at Apple, all they could do was talk about how they wanted to change the world and help teachers and foster better education and quicker access to material and these kinds of things. And then Microsoft, all they could do was talk about Apple. And then, again, 10 or 15 years ago, I look at the company valuations now, significantly different. And clearly the iPhone hugely impacted that. But they're consistently mindful on the people that they serve and how to better impact them. And again, that's long-term strategy. I mean, you don't hit home runs all day, every day, but other brands or people that are in this consistent comparison mode are just doing everything they can to keep up. And if they do get to the top, it's generally only for a second, because if the way you got to the top was focusing on somebody else's quality of service and they're now behind you, well, then what do? You don't pay attention to the guy in second. So I think that has been the status quo for customer service in so many ways the last couple of years. And obviously COVID had a huge impact with that. And it was so bad because, I mean, human capital was something that was, terribly hard to come by. And if you could find anybody, if they were a heartbeat and you owned a restaurant, like, you let them come in, right? Like, please just help serve tables. But as things have started to shift again, it's still phenomenally low. And I think, as businesses, there's a huge opportunity there. But I think we have to take it beyond, if you really want to grow a company and create a brand, I think you have to take it beyond just status quo customer service and doing a great job. I think you need to start doing things that are memorable.
Right.
If you want to be lasting, especially if you want to be a true brand that's competing to be at the top when it comes to value and price. I'd say it's easy to compete at the bottom from a strategy perspective. Yeah, you can have the lowest price, but you won't last long.
Yeah. So when we're talking about these different shifts in the markets and the market and the opportunities here. So from a small business owner's perspective, what's the mindset shift that they need to make to compete now?
Gosh, I mean, I would say the first thing would be know your numbers. And what I mean by that is, going back to marketing, a lot of us pay good money, whether we have people in-house or we're paying agencies to do this, to get new eyes on us. And we're paying attention to that monthly traffic that's coming in, and we're just looking for like linear growth there on a consistent basis. But we generally do a really, really bad job of paying attention to the life cycle of our customers. And again, we're an example of this. I mean, it wasn't until a week or two ago when we updated our scorecards, because, if you're not monitoring it, you don't manage it. And based off a lot of stuff I've been listening to, I was like, man, I need to start paying attention to these two numbers. And I didn't even know what they were. And, one was cost to acquire a customer, then lifetime gross profit from a customer. And then when you start looking at that stuff, it's like, holy shit, it is expensive to get somebody in the door. And then when you get them in the door, it's like, holy shit, why are we not spending so much effort and energy making sure this isn't just good, it's phenomenal what they receive. And not just what they pay for, but above and beyond that. How can you make it memorable? So again, I just think it goes back to understanding the numbers. And then based off of understanding those numbers, you have to sit here and go, okay, is it from both a short-term and a long-term perspective, does it make more sense to continue to double down and put everything on acquiring new people, or for all the people that we have that we're currently taking care of, how can we leverage some of our resources to take care of them better? And if we take care of them better, do we all of a sudden have a better strategy, which is getting referrals in, which are a lot less expensive than getting new eyes?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's just probably one of the biggest challenges with most. I mean, if you're a small business owner, you're already wearing 100 hats, moving 100 miles an hour in every different direction. So when I say know your numbers, some people just kind of like laugh at it, but it is hugely important, because if you can really, really understand some of those key fundamental things, you can focus on where you put your energy, efforts, and priorities to make a real impact.
Yeah. So you mentioned knowing your numbers, and you mentioned the big one that we were just talking about, the customer acquisition costs. What are some of the other numbers? If you were going to just help our small business owner audience understand what numbers are the most important for them, what would you say those are?
Yeah. So, I mean, traffic matters. So the amount of people that are coming in or have visibility on the business hugely matters. Other numbers that matter hugely would be conversion rates. And I don't just mean if you're an e-commerce company. What I would track, like if I were a home service-based business, I would be paying attention to the amount of calls that come in versus the amount of ones that are missed. Every missed phone call is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're literally paying for that to come in. So that in and of itself is a huge one. I mean, here's an example. Maybe 12 months ago, we had a client who I knew personally, and they had complained that the juice wasn't worth the squeeze and decided to go a different direction. And because we track everything, I went back to the numbers and I'm like, this guy had gotten 75 leads last month. Wasn't paying a lot either, to be fair. The reality was he didn't answer his damn phone. So then he went around and turned and said, well, it was just way too much busy work. Right. So he wasn't able to capitalize on the opportunity because he didn't have the systems or the time in place. But calls coming in and missed calls are huge. The amount of actual quotes that you send out versus the ones that you actually convert into paid customers, I would definitely pay attention to that. But I mean, it really depends on the business, man. There are so many, but it's really, I would look at it from front to back inside of the business. Like, what are the things that I'm doing the most to get initial eyes here? How can I increase that number or convert that number at a higher level and just work my way through the funnel?
Awesome. Yeah, I thought that would be really important. I know it was a little off track from what we were talking about, but it all matters. But I want to take a step back. We talked about customer service, and once you're serving your customers well, I think it's important, and we talk about this, taking things to the next level. Again, that memorable experience. But sometimes internally, it's like, well, what do we do? How do we make things better? And I always look at it like, well, I mean, we need to get it from the horse's mouth. Let's talk to the customer. Let's figure out from the customer how we can be better. How can businesses get honest and useful feedback without creating a whole bunch of extra work?
Yeah. So something you could do that would be very simple and automated, that is beneficial. I would set up some sort of, whether it be post-service on a quarterly basis, yearly, whatever makes sense for your business, but a net promoter score survey. And all it generally is, to keep it as simple as possible, is a survey that goes out post, service that just says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to a family, friend, colleague, etc. And what you're really looking for is the outliers in there. So your 9s and 10s and your 5s and belows. The 6s to 8s, like, those are people that, like, hey, you did a good job. They'll probably tell somebody about you, but they're not raving fans and they don't think you're a piece of shit.
Right.
Those are the two that you want to pay attention to. So the raving fans, why did they like us so much? And how can we double down on the things that they said we did so well at? How can we talk about those in our messaging more? Because we've noticed a lot of businesses, and they're really great surveys, the things that are said, they don't even say about themselves.
Right.
Which is hugely powerful. But on the flip side, it's the customers that say you're terrible that really tell you a story. And I know for most business owners, me included, a lot of times you can get really defensive or sensitive to that information. They didn't do X when they should have. And it's like, how in the world could we have? That's not something that even exists in this space. And, well, they didn't know. You're the one with 10 to 20 years experience, not them. And yeah, it may be a one-off, but you learn a lot from those scenarios. So that would be one thing. So again, you could take a simple survey that just says that. It could be sent out via email and a text inside of a form in your CRM on a consistent basis. And then beyond that, if you want more information, you could have them rate if they wanted to. Don't make it mandatory, but a couple of different questions. So, how was the craftsmanship? How was the professionalism? How likely would you use us again? And then like a comment section, which can be extremely telling. And I would do that internally too. Like if you're really interested, I know we're talking about customers, people that are paying us, but if you really want to know what's going on inside your organization, an NPS score, an eNPS score for team members is huge, because these people are paying you as the business owner with their time and their life. So it goes both ways, and it is very telling.
Yeah, that's 100% right. And you know what? You said something that I want to harp on for a second. I think I'll get a good story out of you. But you mentioned sometimes, people get really sensitive about reviews, right? And you said even you've experienced that. So tell me, so give me a story, because I know you've got a story where you've gotten a review and you learned, initially maybe you were defensive, but walk me through a scenario when you learned that was so important.
Yeah, man. So I've luckily had my fair share of negative reviews, or luckily it's maybe the wrong long lens to look at, but it's given me a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
The only bad review we ever got in our agency, I kind of saw coming, I'll be honest. So the guy was referred by another client, which is always good, but he didn't want to work with us about 12 months prior because we were way too expensive for him. He was in the infancy or, the startup of his business, but real high lifetime value clients that he was serving. So he could definitely afford us. He just needed to basically have proof of concept for what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And he had a really terrible first 12 months with the first agency he worked with. In fact, that they really, I would say their model took advantage of people like him. So it was they basically built websites. They did SEO in quotes, and
quote unquote.
Yeah, but their whole model was very low upfront cost, but very high monthly retainers, and they owned everything. So like he didn't own his domain, he didn't own his site. So if he ever wanted to leave, he was fucked.
Hey.
And so he ended up saying enough was enough because he wasn't seeing the return on anything, and he shifted over to us. And when he did, the guy that referred him about 2 months, about a month in to this new client being here, had decided that he needed to hugely scale back on what he was spending in marketing. He was in a super, super seasonal space. He also wanted to entertain another provider, which I think he learned the hard way that it wasn't a good fit, but that's neither here nor there. Mm-hmm. And as we were working with this new guy, I had noticed consistently the team was frustrated with him, and they just couldn't get him to come to meetings on time. They couldn't get him to respond to emails within a week or two. And our CSM, or customer success manager, was constantly following up with him. And we were about 5 to 6 weeks in, and I'm like, guys, where in the world is his website? Where are we at with it? And they're like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. This is what's going on. He hasn't done this, this, or this. We can't get him to come to meetings. So they gave me the whole spiel. And I'm like, all right, look, we've got to meet this guy where he's at. This is taking way too long. I understand everything that you guys are saying. The guy's busy. Like, he literally has a full-time job. He's also got this side hustle going on that he's trying to have to take over his full-time job. Instead of trying to fit him into a box, which is our 8 to 5 schedule, figure it out. A week later, he is blowing up the office phone. And at the time, my wife was answering the calls, and I was driving. I don't even know where I was going. And she is texting me, and she is like, answer your damn phone. And I'm like, nobody has my direct extension. Who in the hell is even calling me? And she was like, there is this guy, and he is cussing me the fuck out right now. And I'm like, all right, now you have my attention. And I'm like, what guy? So she tells me, and I'm like, really? So call comes in. I answer the phone. The guy's from the Northeast too, so he hell of an accent. And I answer the phone. He's like, "Is this Dustin?" I'm like, "It is." He's like, "You motherfucker." I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, "You've got my attention. How can I help you?" And he's like, "You guys," and he just goes on a tirade. And I let him vent for a couple of minutes. And I'm like, all right, clearly the way this guy feels and how he's reacting is not in direct relation to what we have done. There's something else going on, or there's just a history of bad customer service in his area, and this is how he gets things resolved. So as soon as he gets done, he's like, "Are you still there?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to finish and get it all out." He's like, "Yeah, well, what do you have to say?" And I'm like, "Well, I hate it that we made you feel that way and that you don't feel like, we're up to the level that you're looking for. But here's some feedback that my team has given me. We're already kind of ahead of this." So I share it with him. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And I was like, "Look, man, here's what we're willing to do. I understand that we haven't been able to align with times, blah, 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 but let's start meeting you where you're at. I'm just going to go ahead and give you the next month for free so we can get caught up on things so that you're not losing anything." I'm like, "The only thing we've all lost right now is time." And then I'm not even done talking. He cuts me off and he's like, "No, cancel my effing contract. I've already talked to my attorney," which always makes me laugh. I'm like, literally, if you want to cancel your contract, and I'm putting this out in the World Wide Web, just be reasonable. Like, we're not going to court and suing each other. And I'm like, bro, literally just be reasonable. If you hate us that bad, we'll let you go. And so he's like, "I just want to cancel everything, keep the damn money." And I'm like, all right. So I'm like, "Josh, I just want to make sure, let's one more stab at this thing." And he's like, "No, I'm done." All right. And then he goes, "But I'm going to do you a solid. I'm not taking this online because I know what it's like to be a business owner. And when people leave crappy reviews when they're pissed off, and I'm not going to do that to you." I'm like, "All right, yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate you." So I go back, I tell the team, we end up canceling everything. Sad thing is this site that was soon to go live, never did, which was way better than this previous one. And the former agency that was running his stuff had turned his off. So for like probably 3 to 4 months, he had no site. And anyway, 9 months later, it's 9:00. I'm sitting in my house and I check my email and we get a 1-star review.
9 months later.
9 months later.
Yo, that's wild.
And I read this scathing review. And within 5 minutes, Katina reaches out to me and she's like, "Don't respond." And I'm like, "I'm good." And so I drafted a response, sent it to her. My wife was pissed because she remembered this guy and she's like, "Let him have it." And I'm like, "No, I can't do that. Like, I'd like to, but I'll do it in a very diplomatic way." And so I draft the response to Katina going the next day. And she's like, "We're kind of at fault for some of this. I do remember this." And I'm like, "Well, to a point." And so, the review's still online if anyone wants to read it, but leave the response, and it just kind of died on the vine right there. But the reason I'm not upset about the review, just as most business owners, that if you're really doing right by your people shouldn't be, if you get a bad one, it gives you an opportunity to tell your story. And this may sound crazy, but I'm way more likely as a consumer to do business with somebody with a 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9 star rating that has lots of reviews that answers the negative ones, because it tells me that they're real and they're not screening all the shit that comes in. They allow businesses the opportunity to say, or people, how they really feel about them. And then if the negative responses are good, I appreciate it. The companies that ignore them altogether, that kind of rubs me the wrong way too. But the companies that have hundreds, if not thousands, of 5-star reviews and no negatives, I'm like, bro, you're that's not real, especially right now.
Right.
So yeah, and that's just one of many stories.
One of many, huh? So what's the biggest takeaway from that story? Like for a small business owner, I'd say, I'm just gonna give mine. When you're responding to reviews, respond to the audience. Don't respond to the person that's leaving you the review, right? Because you got to know that everyone is going to be looking at your response and how you carry yourselves. And I have seen I've seen some ridiculous review responses.
Me too.
But yeah, guys, just remember, gain your composure, even if it takes you 9 months. But even just gain your composure and respond to the audience, and respond in a decent way to show that you're a good person. Not don't go tit for tat. It never works out. But from that story, what did you learn? What did you take away? And what can other business owners take away from that story?
Be better. Yeah, I think a lot of times we all think we're really good or we're sufficient for the majority of people that we serve, but not everybody. So, to your point, know your audience. Yours is knowing your audience when you're responding to the review. Mine is so much more so to know your audience as far as your customer base is concerned. Not everybody's going to fit inside of your box that you build. And I mean, we have these conversations with sales, customer service, like literally everything. It's, I called them. Great. Well, they emailed you. Meet them where they're at. Or I sent them a follow-up email and they haven't responded. Great. Text them. Or, they want to set up a call, but it's at 6:30 and I'm off. Cool. Take a longer lunch. Like, we did this years and years ago at a different business that I run. It was, I remember inside of that space, it was, well, if we make things so easy for people to order online, we don't have to have call reps to answer phones anymore. And we'll just tell people go online. I'm like, that's the dumbest shit I ever heard. Like, your thing is not as easy as you think it is. And some people actually want to talk on the phone. Some people want to chat with you live. Somebody want to talk via email. I mean, we're all different. So I think for me, it was just another opportunity to go, hey, meet people where they're at. And then a lot of things that we were asking for back then, again, we were fitting people inside of a box. We assumed they had access to X, Y, and Z, and they knew where all the stuff was, and they had ownership to it. And sometimes they just don't. So if we know that from the get-go, we can go, all right, great. We'll create all this stuff for you. We'll just do all the heavy lifting, and then we'll give you ownership of it. Instead of, again, trying to make everybody fit into a mold. Now, does that mean it's extremely scalable to high level when that's the case? Not necessarily, or if it is, it may be not as profitable. But, I think when we're focused, kind of where we started a little bit, when we're focused on customer service at a very high level, I think it's just meeting people where they're at.
Yeah. And when you get that, when you start getting feedback like that and you really care about that feedback, I really think it develops, it takes your customer from, just a basic customer into maybe a loyal customer. But, for our home service audience, like sometimes, for let's say a roofer, you only have that one time, in 10 years that you replace a roof. But, the big thing that we talk about is moving people from customer to advocates for us, that they will advocate. And that's where we get those referrals. So one of my questions here, and I think a lot of business owners want to know, how do businesses naturally create advocates, and why do people struggle so much with this?
Yeah, I think we're all heavily distracted. Like, we're just trying to check off all the boxes to get through the day. And in doing so, we miss so many micro moments and opportunities to pick things up or hints that people are putting out there to make us even better at serving them. And I mean, some of those things, you mentioned like a roofing company, and you go to Mrs. Jones's house, who's a widow, who doesn't have a lot of, friends and family to talk to. And she's got a dog named Whiskers, or whatever the hell the dog's name is. Sounds more like a cat name, but
Whiskers.
Anyway, but spending a couple moments with her to see how she's doing, how her day was, how was church last weekend or whatever. Those things matter, but other things that hugely matter that they'll remember is if you've got a little bag of treats that you've got with you, and you give the dog a treat every time you stop by to check in on them. Like, it's the little stuff that matters the most to people. And, in home service businesses, a lot are like, well, how do we create an advocate or extremely high lifetime value for these one-off projects? Make them an advocate so that they tell everybody else. Because when they're getting you those referrals, that cost of acquisition to get new people in is extremely inexpensive. And it's just by doing simple things. 5 more minutes of a conversation goes a long way. It makes it seem like you care. Picking up some dog treats, which don't cost anything even if you get the good ones.
Right.
don't cost very much money, and it has an impact. I mean, if you're a real estate agent and you just got done, I mean, I think you mentioned this a week ago when we were chatting, but real estate agent, you sell the house, couples moving in and stopping by, with a pizza and some drinks for people because all their kitchen stuff's packed up. That matters. And it's post-closing. Like, who hears from their agent post-closing? Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
But it shows that you care and they're more than just another client. And that's the little stuff where now you're sitting down at, a cardboard box with your kids and some paper plates eating pizza, and you take a selfie and it's like, oh, that's so cute. And it's like, yeah, Jenny was amazing. Our agent sent us pizza. We had no idea. And people are like, wow, Jenny's a human.
Mm-hmm.
She's nice. She cares about people more than just the next sale. So it's just all that little stuff, man. And you've got to create a culture of caring, and you've got to do it from the inside out.
Yeah. I think the thing that people miss, that's so, I don't know, maybe it's just glaring to me, but it's a huge opportunity because we're in the day and age now where people naturally share things that impact them, like online all the time. So, while everyone's trying to go, all these other businesses or whoever is trying to go for the numbers, or we're just trying to create this kind of forced advocacy, if you just go for impact, like the way things are set up now, people will naturally share them, right? They're just going to share, because it's what people do online. If it impacts you, you share it, you post it. People are already looking for those things because they're so few and far between. So, talk to me a little bit about like the differences between, examples of, so tell me. So give me an example of, where you've seen forced advocacy that just doesn't, like, people where you can tell someone's trying to, they're trying to create some sort of impact, but it's not real. You know what I mean? Like the fake, referral. They're trying to get a referral out of you rather. And you can't, you're like, bro, come on.
Yeah, I don't... the only thing I can really think as far as like the forced referrals are things that I've bought in previously, and you get that email a week later, which is totally canned, scripted, or a template, and it's, like thanking me so much for buying a new truck, blah, 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 which to be fair is not a small purchase.
Right.
There's nothing that is a reminder about the funny interactions that we had or the test drive or any of that. And it's like, hey, but if you tell one of your friends, we'll give you $500 and give them $500. I'm like, I don't care. It's those kinds of things that just don't have, I don't know, an impact with me. If they really paid attention to me, it matters. I mean, I know everybody that owns a business gets way too many of these, but cold DMs. If you send me another cold DM, or if our first interaction is a cold DM, of you trying to sell me something right out the gate, I'm done. However, the only ones that have ever caught my attention are the ones where they've recorded themselves actually on our site. Now, I know AI can do all that these days, and they don't have to do any of this, but, a year or two ago, that stuff caught my attention. I'm like, man, they actually took the time to go to my LinkedIn and pay attention to our site and speak to our services. And all right, I'll entertain a 15-minute chat with you. But I think you have to take it down to a personal level to maintain that connection and make it something real, versus what a lot of do, and they just try to automate.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when you do get advocacy down, man, and you start to really think about impact, I think the other question that people are probably going to ask, and that's really important, is how do you track the impact of the advocacy? What are your thoughts on that?
Geez, have a really robust CRM.
Right.
I mean, with UTM tracking and everything inside of it. But yeah, I would say I don't think, us, as far as businesses are concerned, are doing a good enough job doing any of that. So I don't know if I could speak to it at a really high level, but I know one thing that we're doing actually in both companies moving into 2025 is creating separate referral campaigns for both, which have custom links associated with each person and their referrals. And then beyond just did they refer somebody to us, did the other person actually use the referral link and schedule an estimate or purchase something, rent something, et cetera. So that's just one way. There's ways to give loyalty points for people if they continue to come back and paying attention to those things. I know we've tracked year over year sales from organizations and people, but I think all that's important. But I think the other reality is, even though all of us do, or some of us do that, what do we actually do with it? We've talked internally before about Pareto's principle and the 80-20 rule and, what that looks like in so many different, fashions. But, inside of businesses, and the number's not factual for everybody, but if 20% of your customers make up 80% of your business or around that, what do you do for that top 20 that's different? I laughed my ass off one year. Michael, the other co-founder of BLG, spent $250,000 on some new inventory from a company that we hugely leverage in our event rental company. And they sent him a calendar at Christmas. A calendar. Just don't send anything. Because if you're going to do something, at least wow them to some, even if it's just a nice pen, but a fucking calendar.
Wow.
Yeah. But going back to what I had said before, just, track the metrics, the best you can, make sure that you're doing something for the actual advocates. So that there's something that they get out of this as well. And I think those things matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Sweet. Well, in closing, Dustin, man, I really want to give the audience like something really, maybe actionable here. I think we've covered a lot, but what do you think, just for the small business owner that's wearing all the hats, what's the smallest change that they can make right now, tomorrow, that could have a huge impact?
God, there's so many things. I think the things that I would focus on the most is, one, first and foremost, even if it's not you personally, make it a point to start following up with every customer. More than just an automated email or text message task for a review. Prior to that going out, actually reach out and see how the experience was and thank them. Literally, who does that? Two, if you can't get them on the phone, don't keep calling them and bothering them. Send them a thank you card. Right. Even if it's not, and you can do this way post-sale. If you're doing estimates for something and you get the opportunity to meet somebody, send them a thank you card. And I know some in sales would say, oh, never thank somebody else for their time. It makes you look weak. I think that's stupid. Thank people for their time. It goes a long way in comparison to what all the other companies are doing out there. We talked about this internally too. When was the last time you got a card that wasn't from your family? Right.
Been a long time.
Right. Hell, the ones I've gotten from our team, and people are literally still pinned on my board in my office. Down the hall, we get them from organizations that say, thanks for what you did and the donations. Those cards are still pinned up. That kind of stuff matters. So it's just little things. I think if you just carved out 30 minutes to an hour of each week to thank people and follow up, it would go a really long way, because all of a sudden it doesn't matter how big your business looks or how big your business is. You give customers the feeling that it's, not too big for you to really care. But I would just start there. And then to follow that, I'd look into a referral program. I think that kind of stuff matters. And you can sit here and say, well, we've got 1 million 5-star reviews and everyone says we're great. Well, they sent a bunch of customers your way. Well, no, they're not. It's probably because you haven't asked them. Like generally with, the law of reciprocity, like people will do good for you if you do good for them. But this day and age, with it being so busy in the world, sometimes you just got to ask them. And don't do all this at once. Don't call somebody and thank them and then ask them for a review and then ask for 2 referrals. In each communication, one thing.
Right.
Just one thing. So yeah, just some simple stuff. I think, again, the world is super busy. Everybody's hyper fixated on new traffic, new eyes, automations, AI, all this shit. You want to separate yourself? Just be human. Have a conversation. Make it seem like these people actually care. Pay attention to the little things, and that stuff will really help you level up big time. And then don't just do it as the owner or the leader of the organization. Make it a cultural thing. Start doing it internally for the people that you serve. Start highlighting weekly wins. I mean, we just did this last week. We were talking about customer service in the world and how terrible it is. Nobody on the team could mention a great customer service experience recently. So everyone went out and did a random act of kindness, and they were cool, man. It didn't seem like a lot. Buying a sandwich for a homeless guy, buying a lady a cup of coffee, $20, in a box of diapers. I mean, none of this stuff seems out of this world, but I promise that cup of coffee mattered to that lady. That sandwich for the homeless guy mattered. The lady, probably the single mom that went and got the box of diapers for her kids and was wondering how the hell she could afford it. That $20, game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So all this stuff matters, but do that in your organizations too.
Yeah, man, that's good. That's good. Well, man, guys, I want to thank you guys for listening, first of all, and Dustin, thank you for sharing that wisdom today, man. It's always a pleasure to pick your brain. I get the pleasure of working with you every day, but I think it's really important to kind of get these ideas out here because, again, like you said, I think in a lot of cases, people are becoming way more robotic nowadays and automated, and they're just not thinking about, to your point, just being a human. So definitely thank you for sharing that, man. And I'm going to let you close it out because I suck at closing it out.
So, man, well, you crushed it opening the things. I don't know how you could fuck up the end, bro. But no, I mean, I appreciate everybody listening to this thing. As Jarvis said in the very beginning, be on the lookout for a couple of different show types that we're going to be doing. We will continue to have these internal conversations or dialogues like this. There's going to be some rants from me routinely that come out. We'll still continue to do awesome interviews with like-minded entrepreneurs that are crushing it around the world. And then last, but certainly not least, I look forward to launching our Q&A session where it's not just us talking about the things that we think are important. It's answering questions from the people that are actually listening to this. So hopefully we can add some more value to people that way. But other than that, guys, thank you so much again for listening to both Jarvis and I. Super happy to have you on here, man, from both of us here at Life by the Horns. See you. Bye.
Peace.